Shalom, shalom, family. We are at it again. Sorry for the inconvenience, trying to get everything situated. It is really bad out there in those streets. The snow is something else. So I ask that y'all, be careful as y'all driving out there, definitely. Lord willing, everybody will make it back safely if you are out there. So come on in, brothers and sisters. Come on in. We got a treat today. Like, share, watch party, all that good jazz. Come on in, brothers and sisters. We are going to wait till a few more of y'all come in here, and then we will begin. Well, actually, that's enough right now. Okay, so now... thanks to a certain someone, I ain't even finna give him that much acknowledgement. If he happens to hop on this, fine. I'm not even gonna say his name. But he encouraged me to really show y'all that we are indeed the children of Israel, and you can do things unorthodox and still prove that we are the children of Israel, brothers and sisters, right? And of course, we are the children of the one they call, or whose name is Jesus, who is the God of the Old Testament, who is the God of Israel in the flesh, brothers and sisters. So this is all this is about, this whole month with this whole series, bringing Jesus back to Africa, having people understand that these are what you would term in the secular world African customs. They are not European customs. So this is the reason why we are doing this, brothers and sisters, right? We are going to make sure that people understand that this is wholeheartedly a black history book. All praises, shalom to you, shalom to you. This is indeed a history book, brothers and sisters, right? So there is something that's very confusing out here, and there's something that these people who are gainsayers, they get away with because they play on people's ignorance, right? So before we got on here on these slave ships, before they put us on these slave ships, brothers and sisters, and before we came over here to the shores of America, right? We were not known as Hebrews, right? Even though we know we're Hebrews, that translation of that name, peace to you, family. That translation of that name did not exist before we got over here, brothers and sisters. Hebrew is a English form of the word ewe or Erverh. If you've seen my lesson dealing with the deception of the urban apologists on the Wake Up Show with Brother Azza, I break this whole thing down, and it's actually on my YouTube page, Cassius Israel Walls of Jericho. So we break this thing down because when you run into these people that come from West Africa, these are the people y'all come from. You have to understand how you can prove that you're actually an Israelite without this being shown as dogma or something that you just believe in that has no concrete evidence, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to show y'all, as far as the Walls of Jericho, we're going to show y'all how we got from Ewe or Erverh or Ivrit to Hebrew, right? That's what we're going to show that. Before we get into it, I want to give all honor and praise to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Holy One of Israel, who is Jesus. Of course, I am Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Shazak or Kazak ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho, Biblical and Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood Media. And so, back to this. Brothers and sisters, this is gold. These are this information is gold to us and will increase your faith in walking with Christ and following Christ and keeping his laws, statutes, and his commandments. This is what the Black history is for, right? Because we have to have a destination for all this information that we're getting, brothers and sisters. That destination is the kingdom through keeping of the commandments of God, following Christ. Otherwise, this information would not matter. And people need to have that in their head, right? History, all this stuff don't matter if salvation is not the name of the game, right? So what we're going to do is before we get into the scriptures, brothers and sisters, we're going to show you how the term Erverh or Ewe became Hebrew. So you'll understand that if you go to certain people that you'll end up finding out that are Israel, you will not use the name Hebrew, right? Because they'll go over there and say, well, go over there and say, have y'all ever heard of Hebrew Israelites? You're going to go over to a people that don't speak English and don't speak Latin, because that's where the name Hebrew was translated from the Latin to be the English. You're going to go over there and ask these people where the Hebrew Israelites are, and they don't speak English. That should be common sense. But you see these people that want to be deceptive, they play on people's ignorance, right? Well, y'all not going to be ignorant after the day. We're going to get into this, right? So we are going to read this article. This is from, let's see to get the source. This is from www.ghanaweb.com. So this is actually from the Ghana website, brothers and sisters. So we don't play around, because we know that there are Israelites in Ghana. Most of Ghana is made up of Israelite. That is a Israelite province, right? So let's get into this. It says the Erverh or Ewe means Hebrew, right? So it asks the question, how the name Erverh Ewe became Hebrew, right? So in this article, it says, as I pointed out in the previous article, the proper pronunciation of the name of my people is Erverh and not Ewe, right? So he's getting into that. It's really Erverh, but or Ivrit or Erverh, but in order for the people to know what you're talking about, you're going to have to use Ewe. And what's crazy, brothers and sisters, is that the name Ewe is in the KJV 16:11, where it says, we are neither a Jew or Greek, male or female, or bond or slaves, but we are all one in Christ Jesus. It says Ewe or Greek. There was no, now this is when you can use, they didn't use the J in the 16:11 version. They used the I. It was spelled I-E-W-E. This is spelled E-W-E. It's the same thing, brothers and sisters. The I don't make it a different people. So let's understand that, right? So it says Erverh is also the proper name of our ancestors, the ancient Israelites. The ancient Israelites were never called Jews or Hebrews. How these names came about is what I will explain now. So the person in the article is explaining this, right? So they did not call us Hebrew. Remember, we are working through different languages, brothers and sisters. So if you want to really connect with the Hebrew people, right, you have to know which terminology when you're going in different areas of the world, in different countries. You have to know what triggers or what words to say. Then you can start asking questions and they will confirm it. For instance, I have a testimony. I was coming back from Connecticut one day, and I got an Uber. And so I got on the, when I got in the Uber, found out that this brother was an Ashanti, right? Ashanti is an Ewe, right? He's considered Ewe. So I found out this brother was Ashanti. And so I started going through these different translations of the name. Some he did not, some that he did not recognize because it was an ancient name. So I got to use the corrupt version of Erverh, which is Ewe, which we're going to show in here, right? So this is how the people of the world knew that the Israelites were in West Africa, because they already had the name Ewe, which means Hebrew or Jew, right? But they didn't call them Jews, right? That is a name that came later, right? So let us continue. Most people assume that the ancient Israelites were called Jews. It may be surprising to people to find the literal word Jew is not in the entire original text of the Bible. There is no name like that in either the Old or New Testaments. The original Hebrew of the Old Testament uses the word Yahudim, meaning Jehudite. The original Greek of the New Testament uses the word aidos, meaning Judean. Earlier translations kept these original names. Unfortunately, the word Jew has replaced them in recent times. This is a recent thing that has happened, brothers and sisters, right? So let us not get confused with these words, right? This is how you'll be able to connect with your people from Africa, because they will understand, oh, are you Ewe? Yes, I am. Oh, so you can start asking them questions that refer back to the Bible, because they kept those customs and still keep them till this day. So I was that same Ashanti brother that I was telling y'all about. I asked him certain things like about the Sabbath, about the supreme God of the Ashantis, which we're going to get into today. Is he the God of the Sabbath day? Yes. Do y'all do circumcision on the 8th day? Yes. Do y'all do livery marriages when you marry your dead brother's widow? Yes. He confirmed everything, brothers and sisters, every single thing. And a lot of us out here, we're going to focus on 4 tribes today, really. A lot of us come from either one of these 4 tribes, mainly the Igbos and the Yoruba, right? Mainly the Igbos and the Yoruba, right? So let us continue. So it says, in fact, the mere fact that certain people identify by the name Jew shows they are not direct descendants of the ancient Israelites. This is because the direct descendants of the ancient Israelites retained the name of their ancestors, which was Erverh, corrupted as Ewe. So they kept their names all the way in West Africa, and they are spread throughout Africa, brothers and sisters, known as Ewe or Bantu. You can use either name, Ewe or Bantu. These are the Israelites that are in Africa, and these are the people that we come from, right? Let us continue. It says the name Hebrew, on the other hand, is the English translation of the name pronounced Erverh. The Israelites wrote their name in Hebrew with symbols, that are represented the letters IVRE, Ivri. In English, IVRI is pronounced Erverh, right? You can check this by doing a Google search on Ivri, right? Or Erverh, IVRI, right? So you can also look this up. You can use the word ERVERH. That is ERVERH. I've been using this stuff for years, brothers and sisters. This is legit, right? This is legit. So let's continue. It says how Erverh became Hebrew. It says a direct translation of the name of the Israelites would be Ivri, or pronounced Erverh. However, in time, this true name of the Israelites took a back seat. What replaced the name of the Israelites is a great departure from the truth. To make matters worse, the name Hebrew comes from the double translation from the original name. Let me explain what I mean by all that. The name Hebrew is the English translation of the name pronounced Erverh from Latin. That means the first translation of the name of the Israelites into Latin was the first step. This first step dropped and lost the proper pronunciation of Erverh, with the proper pronunciation lost in translation. In came the second step, which is the new Latin's name translation into what we have now in English as Hebrew, right? The following is how it all unfolded. From the time of Abraham until the time of Jesus Christ, the world knew the Israelites as Erverh. In fact, Jesus and all his apostles were Erverh, or Israelites, or Hebrews. This name became lost after the death of Christ 2,000 years ago, when the Roman Empire ruled the Middle East, right? Because the Roman Empire, their lingua franca was the Latin language, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Around the time of Christ, Judea, the home of the Israelites, became a province of the Roman Empire. The national language of the Roman Empire was Latin. Therefore, all the literature people wrote and read was in Latin. Available books not originally written in Latin were all translated into it. Including these translations were the Hebrew scriptures. The name Ivri, pronounced Erverh, translated into Latin, became Hebraikus. Hebraikus. You see what I'm saying? So the name Hebrew came from the word hubracus in the Latin, brothers and sisters, right? We're breaking this down for a reason. We are breaking this down for a reason. This name, hubracus, as you can see yourself, is now nowhere near the pronunciation of Erverh, right? So we understand this is how Hebrew or Erverh or Ivrit or Ewe became Hebrew. It was not the original name for our people, and that is why these folks that want to be deceptive, they can go out here and use this name. Nothing wrong with the name, it's just a translation. But they can use this name, brothers and sisters, and throw everything off. And then the people who are actually Hebrews, they won't know what you're saying because they don't speak that language, right? So we've got to be mindful. We got to be mindful of this, right? And this could throw people off, right? So let us get into it. Remember, brothers and sisters, we are dealing with the crafty counsel. The crafty counsel. So what we want to do is we want to unfold all of this stuff so we can get down to the bottom of everything, right? So let us deal with the crafty counsel and remind everyone what their purpose was when it came to the crafty counsel, right? So let's start this at Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Psalms, the 83rd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Psalms, the 83rd chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Psalms 83 and verse 1. Once again, brothers and sisters, if you want to see the detailed breakdown, you can go on my page, or you can go on Isaac K. Fingers' page on his Wake Up Show and look up the title of a lesson that was called "The Deception of the Urban Apologist Concerning Israel." Right? We did 6 hours. If you want to, you don't even have to. I will tell people if you don't want to look at the whole thing, both videos, the second one is the one you really want to pay attention to, right? The second one. But you want to see the whole thing in its entirety and get all the detailed information, brothers and sisters, watch both of them. Psalms 83, and we are going to start at verse 1. Psalms 83, and we are going to start at verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones." And what I just showed y'all, that's one of the ways, brothers and sisters, to knock you off on what they originally called you, and then start calling you by the translation of that name, right? So now when the people that don't speak these languages, if you ask them, are they Hebrew? They're not going to know they're Hebrew because they don't know that it's the same as Erverh or Ewe. So we want to understand this so that when we deal with these people, brothers and sisters, we'll be able to unlock that information and prove that these are genetically the same people and that we're all Israelites. Right? We are all Israelites genetically, right? This is not no dogma. You are genetically a Hebrew Israelite, right? Let us continue. Verse 4, "They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee," right? So we understand, brothers and sisters, that the nations are confederate against the nation of Israel to cut them off from being a nation, right? That the name, and it says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? So they didn't want nobody to remember the name. They didn't want nobody to remember the people. They wanted them to cut them off from being a nation. And this also shows you why the remembrance of them, as we showed the last lesson last week, the remembrance of them cease from among men. So if your name's the original name that they called you is lost in translation, brothers and sisters, you can be lost in translation. You see what I'm saying? People will not know who you are, and they will not know how to figure out who you are at that. So even with us over here, if we don't know certain things, brothers and sisters, this is going to seem like we're just part of another religion or another denomination of Christianity. It's not going to be set apart. It's not going to be, nothing is going to be different, right? Nothing is going to be a big, mind-blowing experience to get you to see, well, wow, this is not the same thing, right? So let us continue. Now, another thing that people get caught up in is the name of God, right? And we're not going to really get into that, brothers and sisters. But then you got people who only use the name Jesus, not understanding that that is a translation. The name is good. The name is, nothing is wrong with the name, right? Nothing is wrong with the name whatsoever. But the other names there's no issue with the other names as well, brothers and sisters. And one of the names we're going to bring up is the name Yah. And what kills me is that that's how you can find the Israelites in West Africa before they came, especially before they came over here, right? So we're going to see that real quick. Let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter. 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter. Shalom to all that just came in here. Shalom to you. 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 13. 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 13. Second Chronicles 7 and verse 13. And verse 13 reads, if I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send the pestilence among my people, here is a side note, brothers and sisters, right? He said, if I send the locusts, like all of this stuff, and I just want to make this a side note, since this pandemic has been happening, brothers and sisters, it's other stuff that been happening. Locusts been going out, crops been getting ate up, earthquakes have been happening, right? This is why we see that we are indeed in the beginning of sorrows, right? But then you got the pestilence, right? So the Lord said, if I send the pestilence among my people, what is the solution of getting you out of that, making sure you're not going to be affected by this pestilence, and I am a witness to it, right? What is the solution, brothers and sisters? Verse 14, he said, if my people which are called by my name, right? We're going to focus on that too. If my people that are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. So if you're doing this, brothers and sisters, and he send the pestilence over you, he will keep you in a state of healing. This is what he said. So I just want to make this a point. This is what he said. This should be motivation for my people to put more trust in the Lord than the pestilence, than the fear of a pestilence. This is all I want to state that, brothers and sisters. Trust in the Lord more than the fear of the pestilence that's going out here, because he is in control, right? So let us get to the focus, though. He said, if my people that are called by my name, right, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. So let's go see what one of the names of the Elohim is, brothers and sisters, right? So let's go now to Psalms 68. We're doing this for a reason, brothers and sisters. This is not to discredit the name of Jesus. Of course, we're not going to discredit the name of Jesus, right? But this is why you can't discredit the other names as well, because there's information here, brothers and sisters, that will bring you to a mind-blowing conclusion, I guess you can say, right? Psalm 68. Psalm 68, and we're going to start at verse 4. We're going to read one verse. Psalm 68 and verse 4. Psalms, the 68th chapter, and verse 4. Psalm 68 and verse 4. And verse 4 reads, sing unto God, sing praises to his name, right? So sing praises to his name, right? Extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Jah, or in this case is Yah, because we know that they weren't using the J in the 1611, so we're not gonna see Jah in the 1611, right? KJV, we're still dealing with the KJV. So it would have been Yah, brothers and sisters, right? Y-A-H, Yah. And rejoice before him, right? So sing unto God, sing praises to his name, extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Yah, and rejoice before him. So he said, if my people that are called by my name, right? And then the name is Yah, let's go prove them people, right? So now, y'all can do this if you're at a computer right now, you can do this right now. So what you can do now, brothers and sisters, and this is pretty old. You can go to a website called slavevoyages.org. Slavevoyages.org. If you go into the websites, you're going to see African names, right? Then when you see African names, you click on African names, you're going to see database. When you see database, click database, you're going to see names up there, like African names. Type in Yah, and then you will see the tribes that the people are named after Yah. That are the people that are named after Yah, you'll see the tribes that they come from, which are Ewe tribes. Now, this stuff right here cannot be a coincidence, brothers and sisters. It just cannot be a coincidence, right? You will see a whole list of people. You will see the tribe they come from and the slave boat that they came off of when they got on there, and the slave boat that they came off of. You will see all of these things, right? So we know them people that's on them slave ships are Hebrews or they're Israelites, right? But then they got the name Yah in their name, right? So just some examples. You got Inyah, Yahoo, Akiya, Hanya, Henya, Beneya, Hanya, Inya again, Tayaho, Kuya, and etc., brothers and sisters. And the tribes that you will see here are Igbo, Calabar, and Tolo tribes. These are Israelite or Ewe tribes, brothers and sisters. Now, we already starting off with, we showed you that how the name, or where the name Hebrew actually came from and what name it was translated from, Ewe. You can go and see that these tribes, Igbo tribe is an Ewe tribe. Remember, we're going to do 4 tribes today. The Igbo, the Gandangbe, they're called the Gandangbe, the Ga in Ghana, the Yoruba in Nigeria or southwestern Nigeria, and the Ashanti, brothers and sisters, right? They are all Ewe or Hebrew tribes, and they have Yah in their name, brothers and sisters, right? Is that a coincidence? And that's minuscule, right? So that's what we're starting off with. Once again, you can go to slavevoyages.org. Slavevoyages.org. You will see African names there. You will go into database. You will see African name on the side. Type in Yah, and you will see all these Hebrew tribes with the name Yah in them. Now, that's not a coincidence. Once again, they did not speak English, So what other name would be in their name? It would be Yah, the same thing David called out. David said Yah. They have Yah in their name, brothers and sisters. This is a African name, quote unquote, a African name. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'll do that after the lesson. So, brothers and sisters, I will put the sources that I am using, and I will put it in the comment section after the lesson, right? Because we give sources, right? Too many people are too pseudo out here. So we definitely going to give them sources. So that's one thing, brothers and sisters. So the name stayed with the people, right? The name stayed with the people. So we got their Hebrew, their Erverh or Erverh. They are Hebrew people. They got the name Yah in them. Let's see what else. Let's see what else they got. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and see these signs, brothers and sisters, because once again, the lesson is the signs of God. The signs of God. The signs of God identify the Hebrew or Erverh people, right? So one of the signs or the covenant is circumcision, right? Specifically circumcision on the 8th day. So let's go see that. Let's go to Genesis, the 17th chapter. So remember, brothers and sisters, let's just count this down, right? We know that Erverh was translated, Hebrew was translated from Erverh. We know that. So we also know that the name of God, Yah, is in the name of the Erverh people. So we got two things, not a coincidence. So now we're going to see three things. Let's go to circumcision, right? Genesis, the 17th chapter. Now, if people are saying this is not the Hebrew people, and I want y'all to say that these are converts, me and my team, we always say the same thing, brothers and sisters. Show where there was a mass colonization of Judaism in West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. Show it. Bring up the evidence. There is none. I'm going to just tell y'all now. There is none. They did not go and convert. They don't even do that. They don't just go out and convert people to Judaism. That's not how that works, brothers and sisters. And people have to understand that, right? Christianity, they did that. With Catholicism, Islam, they did that because that's what they do. They will force convert you into their religion. But Judaism, it don't work like that, right? So they couldn't even go down there and do that. There is no proof of that. The only evidence we have is that these people came down there with these customs, with these names. And they kept them all the way until we got brought over here, brothers and sisters. So yes, we do come from those people, and they are Hebrew people, right? Genesis, the 17th chapter. Genesis, the 17th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 9. Genesis, the 17th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 9. Genesis 17 and verse 9. (17 and 9). And verse 9 reads, And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. So this is a token of the covenant, being circumcised on what day, brothers and sisters? Verse 12. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or brought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So the only reason to do that, brothers and sisters, is to show that you have a token with the God of Israel. There's no other reason to get circumcised on the 8th day. No other reason. You see what I'm saying? No other reason. And for the medical purposes, because we also show that, for the medical purposes on the 8th day, that came from the understanding of why God did this, brothers and sisters. He did it because not only was it a scientific health and medical thing, but it was the token that he made between him and his people. Circumcision on the 8th day. Let's specify that. Because they want to play around with that, right? Oh, all type of nations get circumcised. Which one of them gets circumcised on the 8th day, brothers and sisters? The 8th day. Nobody. That is a Hebraic, Erverh custom, right? Let us continue. Verse 14. And the uncircumcised man-child whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. So this is a serious matter to the God of Israel, brothers and sisters. That token of the covenant, which is the circumcision of the foreskin on the 8th day of the man-child's birth. Right after his birth, rather. Right? So we understand this, right? So let's go see how serious the God of Israel takes this, brothers and sisters, right? Let's go now to Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, because this is serious, right? You have to know these signs, brothers and sisters, and these are things that are specifically and exclusively to the God of Israel. Nobody else was doing this. Nobody else was named Erverh, which we know turned into Hebrew. Nobody else had the name Yah in their name, brothers and sisters. As a people, you were constantly naming your children based on the name of their God, brothers and sisters. Once again, that does not discredit the name Jesus. We are just focused on Yah because we can see that it is categorized as an African name, right? We bringing Jesus back to Africa. Jesus ain't nothing but Yah in the flesh, brothers and sisters. So let's not get too carried away with that, right? They're the same person, right? So we're going now to Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, and we're going to see how serious this covenant was. Circumcision on the 8th day. Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 4. Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 4. Ezekiel 44 and verse 4. Ezekiel 44 and verse 4. And verse 4 reads, Then brought he me the way of the north gate before the house, and I looked, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord, and I fell upon my face. And the Lord said unto me, Son of man, mark well, and behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears all that I say unto thee concerning all the ordinances of the house of the Lord, and all the laws thereof. And mark well the entering in of the house with every going forth of the sanctuary, right? So once again, we're going to see how serious the breaking that covenant as far as circumcision is with the God of Israel, right? Verse 6, and thou shalt say to the rebellious, even the house of Israel. So we are acknowledging that he's seeing them as rebellious, right? So he said, thou shalt say to this rebellious, to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord God, O ye house of Israel, let it suffice you in all your abominations, in that ye have brought into my sanctuary strangers, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh. So we know both of them are there, brothers and sisters. Don't let nobody sit here and say you don't have to circumcise your man-child, because it's really about the circumcision of the flesh. No, it's about the circumcision of the flesh. A circumcision of the heart and the flesh. It has to be both, not just one. Both. right? So he said, in that ye have brought into my sanctuary strangers, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary to pollute it, right? Because you broke the original covenant, which was the token of the covenant he made with Abraham, which was to circumcise your man-child's foreskin on the 8th day of his birth, after his birth. Right? So let's continue. He said, they brought these strangers into the sanctuary to pollute it, even my house, when ye offer my bread and fat and the blood, and they have broken my covenant because of all your abominations, right? Skip down to verse 9. Verse 9. And verse 9 reads, thus saith the Lord God, no stranger uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel. So if the strangers ain't going to get away with that, the children of Israel definitely ain't going to get away with that. So this is a token, brothers and sisters. This is a token that was carried on by the Israelites all the way down until the transatlantic slave trade. We kept this custom, brothers and sisters. It was after that things started getting diluted, but they still keep them to this day. Right? They still keep them to this day. Now, let's go see who else got circumcised on the 8th day. Let's go to Luke, the 2nd chapter. Luke, the 2nd chapter. I'm sorry, Luke, the 1st chapter. We're going to deal with that. Luke, the 1st chapter. Luke, the 1st chapter, and we're going to start at verse 57. Right? So we see how serious he takes this, brothers and sisters. So ain't no circumvent that. What other God takes circumcision on 8th day so serious? Show me. Because it didn't come from that God. It came from the God of Israel, right? Luke, the 1st chapter, and we're going to start at verse 57. Luke, the 1st chapter, and we're going to start at verse 57. Luke 1 and 57. And verse 57 reads, now Elizabeth's full time came that she should be delivered, and she brought forth a son. And her neighbors and her cousins heard how the Lord had showed great mercy upon her, and they rejoiced with her. And it came to pass that on the 8th day, they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias, after the name of his father, right? So we are seeing that this is John, brothers and sisters, that's finna be circumcised or being circumcised on the 8th day, right? Let us continue. Verse 60. And his mother answered and said, not so, but he shall be called John. And he was named that before he was even born. That is another custom of Israel, as you can see, right? So John got circumcised on the 8th day, and he was also named on the 8th day. That is a Israelite custom. Naming the child on the 8th day after the circumcision, that is a Israelite custom, brothers and sisters, right? So we're seeing all these signs. We got this token and this sign between Abraham and God that we are in a covenant with him. And we can see that, like I said, going all the way from when the covenant was made, brothers and sisters, all the way to the shores of West Africa. By the time they take us over the transatlantic slave trade, that's when we really started losing our heritage. But before that, we kept all these customs, brothers and sisters. In Africa, we kept these customs. Who did they come from? They came from Jesus, right? Who is Yah in the flesh. Let us not ignore that, right? Or forget that. Let's keep that in our minds, right? So John got circumcised and named on the 8th day, brothers and sisters. Let's see who else did. Let's go to Luke, the 2nd chapter. Luke, the 2nd chapter. Next chapter. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 15. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and we are going to start at verse 15. And verse 15 reads, "And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known to us." Right? Now, who gave the names to John and Jesus? The angels did, right? What we're going to also show is that they're seen as messengers, right? But the actual angels that are not men, because brothers love saying that, but the angels came and gave the name, right? So in a similar text, what we're going to read in one of these other books that I'm going to bring out in a minute, brothers and sisters, is that these African people, the Yoruba, which we're going to show, they had sages naming them before they were born. But they would wait until the 8th day to name them after they got circumcised. Isn't this what happened to John? Let's go see who else got this. We're going to continue. Verse 16. "And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in the manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all they that heard it wondered, and those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them." Here it goes, verse 21. "And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, his name was called Jesus, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb." Before he was conceived in the womb, his name was already given. Right? So, and then they waited till the 8th day to name him after the circumcision. So we see John got that done. We see Jesus got that done. These are major players in the Bible, right? So, now, I'm going to bring this book out, brothers and sisters. You know the funny thing about this book, which I love, which people that try to discredit us cannot say. This book, you can't even find it on the internet, brothers and sisters. You got to actually go to Nigeria to the author himself, right? Because this is an eyewitness account of this author, brothers and sisters. So y'all can see the book. You go to author. You have to go to Nigeria to get this book, right? And don't worry about how we got it. Just know we got it, right? So, this is by Dr. Olapade Agoro, right? And he is about to break down his families or his people, his race, their customs, brothers and sisters. Let's see if it matches, right? So we're going to go to page, let's see, to the source to get this book. So we don't want to be crying that this is pseudo and all this. This was written by the man himself about his people, right? So let us read. This is page 42. This book is called Yoruba, Hebrew translatable Yahuba, Factual of the People's Anthropogenesis, right? Yoruba, Hebrew translatable Yahuba, Factual of a People's Anthropogenesis by Dr. Olapade Agoro. That is the source, right? So page 42, it says, this issue of 8th day, one must point out, was ordained a covenant by the Almighty God to Abraham in the Holy Bible, Genesis 17, verse 12, right? We just read that. I read verse 8 through 14 so we can see the whole context, right? It says that he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. This was later to become an established law through Moses, the prophet of God, that And in the 8th day of the flesh of the foreskin shall be circumcised. Holy Bible, Book of Leviticus, chapter 12, verse 3, KJV. The story on this 8th day naming ceremony matter will, however, not be completed without the mention of other relativities. The naming ceremony often comes with the rituals and celebrations and to offer a sacrifice according to that which is said in the law of the Lord. Luke 2:24, Holy Bible, KJV. He says the Yoruba race would not name their newborn babies on the 8th day without naming ceremonies involving sacrifice, often involving drinking and feasting. This will largely depend on the mood of the moment of the purse of the parents and the purse of the parents. So their financial state. At the same time, the name to be given must reflect happenings in the family. A name like mine, Olapade, tells a whole story of my birth. Olapade literally means my birth was regarded as emergency of immense wealth and honor bestowed on the family. My name was given to me by a sage before I was conceived. Isn't that what happened with John and Jesus? Before he was conceived, Jesus' name was given. Before he was conceived, John's name was given. This is what happens in this whole race, the Yoruba race. Because they are Ewe, brothers and sisters, they are Hebrews. So we can see the customs are coming down all the way to the transatlantic slave trade. Right? Let's see, he says, my name was given to me by a sage or a messenger, right? So the angel wasn't coming. It was a sage, brothers and sisters, right? Before I was conceived in my mother's womb, and in fact, years before my mom married my father. But nobody dared mention the name until the 8th day I was born, right? He says this will be found relative to the custom of the Jews. Jesus, the name given by the angel to our Lord before he was conceived in the womb, and Miriam, which is Mary, his mother was known but not pronounced until the 8th day after he was born, right? So now we're going over to page 44. Page 44. It says the Yoruba race oftentimes mentioned, loved, and liked everything socio-political to be maraschino, cherry type, hot, juicy, and spicy, right? That's a side note. No wonder, therefore, that when the Europeanized Christianity lacking flavor and luster was introduced to the Yoruba land, it did not last long before it was challenged. Now, if the Christianity that we've been under, brothers and sisters, right, is the original Christianity that kept the law of Moses, why would they fight against it? And they were already keeping these laws. It would be something that would trigger them in their mind to be like, man, this is a familiar practice. Let's go ahead and see what this is about, right? But no, because the law was done away with when it came to the Western Christianity. So they didn't even bring circumcision, naming ceremony. They didn't bring none of that with the Christianity that they brought, brothers and sisters. They didn't bring any of it, right? Let us continue. It says, 8-day ceremony of the naming of John the Baptist. On biblical record are those associated with the naming ceremonies of two of the most important biblical characters that ever came through this life, i.e. John the Baptist and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, particularly dictating whom we are, what we are, and what we are expected to be, right? So let's skip down. It says the 8-day ceremony of the naming of Christ Jesus, the most important narratives of the naming and circumcision of the greatest revealing power of Almighty God in spirit form, from the spiritual realm, becoming word of power recorded in the Holy Bible Gospels, according to St. Luke chapter 2, verse 21, revealed thus. When the 8th day came and the child was to be circumcised, they gave him the name Jesus, the name the angel had given him before his conception. Right? So we're seeing that this is an African custom, and guess what? It was Jesus and John custom as well. So we notice we're not dealing with no Eurocentric custom, brothers and sisters, right? I use African loosely as well, because we already know that we're not African, so to speak, but geographically, that's where we come from, right? Northeast Africa is where Israel is. So I'm going to use that terminology, right? So we saw in there, brothers and sisters, that the Yorubas get circumcised and named on the 8th day, same as the Hebrews, right? So now we got circumcision here. We're not finished with that. We got the name of these people. You can go and see that Yorubas are considered Ewe, Igbos are considered Ewe, Shanti, which we're going to bring all of these up, are considered Ewe, and the Gandambe are considered Ewe, or Hebrew, right? See, we also know that these folks have the name Yah in them, right? If you go on there, you'll see Igbos having the name Yah in them, brothers and sisters. But they were all doing this at one point in time, right? So, let us continue. Let's see. So, let us continue with the circumcision. So, we're going to discuss the Igbos real quick. So, we already saw that the Yorubas get circumcised on the 8th day, right? Let us continue. This is from http://abindigo.com, and it's discussing the culture of the Iba Igwu circumcision in Igbo land, right? So we're going to discuss some things that had happened, brothers and sisters, but all said and done, they get circumcised on the 8th day, right? So let's see with the Igbos. And be mindful of the heathen practices amongst them. The Ibi Agwu, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Male circumcision is the removal of the foreskin covering the head of the penis, right? It is an ancient Igbo tradition and practice that has its origin in our traditional religious rites. Most Igbo parents have their sons circumcised for cultural reasons. In times past, we circumcised both male and female. That was in times past, right? But these days, we Igbos have stopped female circumcision and genital mutilation of women in virtually all our communities. For some male newborns, Ibi Igwu is done on the 3rd day after birth, while for others, male Ibu Igwu is performed on the 8th day after birth, which incidentally is same as 2 weeks in the Igbo calendar. But in some Igbo settlements outside the shores of Nigeria, male circumcision is postponed until adulthood as a sign that one is now a man, ripe for marriage and the responsibilities of life. So we see what it has turned into, right? But this was not the ancient tradition, right? Not the ancient tradition. It says, however, we are mainly known among a community of ethnic tribes and nationalities in Nigeria for circumcising our sons on the 8th day after birth, according to Genesis 17:9. So we see that the Igbos get circumcised. Their tradition is to get circumcised on the 8th day. The Yoruba's tradition was get circumcised on the 8th day. If you keep looking up, once again, I referenced those videos, brothers and sisters, you want to go see them. The Gandangbe get circumcised on the 8th day, and the Ashanti get circumcised on the 8th day. So now we got to understand, well, why do they, if they're not Hebrew, why do they have the name of Yah? Why do they have circumcision on the 8th day and the naming ceremony? Why are they called Ewe, which the word Hebrew is translated from? Why do they have all these things if they're not Hebrews? Right? What are they? And prove that they're converts. So you got to show me what they are, brothers and sisters, or who they are. The same people that we are genetically coming from. Who are they with all of these Hebraic practices? Right? Let us continue. Now let's go to the next section. What we're going to do is now the Sabbath day. Right? Let us go to Luke, the 4th chapter. Luke, the 4th chapter. Luke, the 4th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 14. Luke, the 4th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 14. Luke, the 4th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 14. And verse 14 reads, "And Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee. And there went out a fame of him throughout all the region round about. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read." Right? So Jesus' custom was to go into the synagogues on the Sabbath day. Let's see where he got that from, right? Let us now go to Exodus, the 20th chapter. Exodus, the 20th chapter. Exodus, the 20th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 8. Exodus, the 20th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 8. Exodus, the 20th chapter, and verse 8. And verse 8 reads, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." So we know where he got it from. It's part of the covenant of the God of Israel, brothers and sisters, right? So let us confirm that. Let's go to Exodus, the 31st chapter. Exodus, the 31st chapter. Exodus, the 31st chapter, and we are going to start at verse 12. Exodus, the 31st chapter, and we are going to start at verse 12. Exodus 31 and verse 12. And verse 12 reads, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you," right? So it is a sign that you would know that he is your God, brothers and sisters, right? And notice he said Sabbaths. So he's not just talking about the weekly Sabbaths, brothers and sisters. He's talking about the annual Sabbaths, the high Sabbaths as well, brothers and sisters. So these Sabbaths are a sign between God and his people that he is their God, brothers and sisters, right? So the Sabbath day is a sign. The circumcision on the 8th day is a sign. We see all of these signs that let us know that these are the people of the God of Israel, right? The natural genetic people of the God of Israel. Sabbath day, their name, right? The circumcision and naming on the 8th day, brothers and sisters, right? So we see all of these things are from the people that we came from off these slave ships, right? Verse 14, "Ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is a holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people, right? Let's skip down to verse 16. Verse 16. Verse 16 reads, "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed." So we know that the Sabbath day, brothers and sisters, is a sign that you are God's people, right? And if you keep these as your custom, just like Jesus did, then you are a Israelite, brothers and sisters. You're an Israelite. That's basically what it is, right? If this is your natural custom, your indigenous custom, you are an Israelite because you are carrying the signs of the God of Israel, brothers and sisters, right? So let us continue. Let's see once again how important this day was. Let's go to Nehemiah, the 9th chapter. Nehemiah, the 9th chapter. Nehemiah, the 9th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 12. Nehemiah, the 9th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 12. Nehemiah 9 and verse 12. And verse 12 reads, "Moreover, thou leddest them in the day by a cloudy pillar, and in the night by a pillar of fire, to give them light in the day wherein they should go. Thou camest down also upon Mount Sinai, and spakest with them from heaven, and gavest them right judgments and true laws, good statutes and commandments, and madest known unto them thy holy Sabbath, and commandest them precepts, statutes, and laws by the hand of Moses thy servant." So he made known unto them his holy Sabbath, brothers and sisters, right? He made known unto the Israelites. Why? Because it was a sign between him and them, showing that he was their God and the Israelites were his people, which are us, brothers and sisters, right? So let's go see them keeping that. Like I said, we were keeping this stuff in West Africa before we got brought over by these slave ships, brothers and sisters, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to another book. This is Sabbath. This is called Sabbath Roots, The African Connection by Charles E. Bradford. The Sabbath Roots by Charles E. Bradford. The Sabbath Roots, The African Connection by Charles E. Bradford. And we're going to go to page 27. Page 27. Now we're going to deal with the Ashanti real quick, brothers and sisters, right? Were the Ashanti keeping the Sabbath? Let us see. Page 27, it says, Kofi Owusu Mensah and Ashanti Ghanaian notes. Oral traditions and modern scholars and research into Akan traditions and customs affirm Saturday as Anyami Kwame's special day in Akan land. Writing in the early 20s, Rattray, the British anthropologist, discovered that the Ashanti name of God is Anyami or Anyankapan Kwame, whose day of service is a Saturday, adding that the Ashanti God is the same as the Jehovah of the Israelites, whom they worship on the Sabbath or Saturday. Right? So we see that the Ashanti keep the Sabbath day. They kept the Sabbath day, and their God was named the God of the Sabbath day, or whose special day of worship was the Sabbath day. Whose special day of worship was that, brothers and sisters? The God of Israel. The God of Israel. That is another sign, and we see that the Ashanti are Ewe people. They are Hebrews, brothers and sisters, right? Hebrews. So now we got this. We got the name of the people, right? We went over the translation of how Hebrew even became what it is. We got the name of the people, the Ewe or the Hebrews. We showed them having Yah in their name, which is the name of the God, one of the names of the God of Israel, which is Yah. We see that. We saw circumcision on the 8th day. We compared Jesus and John to this man who had the same customs. Then we showed that the Igbo do the same thing, brothers and sisters. These are all African tribes. So if this was the white man's book, why is the white man writing about African tribes? He's not African. He's not even close to being African, right? At least you could say, so to speak, that we're African because we come from we live and our land is on the African continent. But you can't say that about the Europeans, right? You cannot say that about the Europeans, brothers and sisters, right? So now we got the Sabbath day, we got circumcision on the 8th day. We're gonna remind people this. We got Sabbath day, we got circumcision on the 8th day, we got Yah in the names of the people, and they're called Hebrews. By the original translation, Ewe or Erverh, meaning Hebrews, right? And we come from these people, and they came off the slave boats. See, that's how you prove a people, brothers and sisters, that you come from a people. You view their anthropogenesis or their anthropology, right? You prove that, you see that, and if you come from these people, that's who you are. That's as simple as that. But they will see you break this stuff down, brothers and sisters, and still deny that you're Hebrews, right? That don't make no sense, right? So let's go deal with the last section. Let's go deal with the high Sabbaths, right? So we showed the Igbo, we showed the Ashanti, and we showed the Yoruba, right? Let us go to Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 16. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 16. Excuse me. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and verse 16. And verse 16 reads, 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, which is Pentecost, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessings of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. These are more signs that you are part of the people of God, brothers and sisters. The 3 annual feasts, right? The 3 annual feasts. Now, you can go and look this up, brothers and sisters. We're going to name the festivals now we're going to deal with the Gandangbe, right? And we're going to deal with the festivals and what they're called, brothers and sisters, so y'all can go and look these things up, right? So we got the Passover or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is called the Homowo Festival amongst the Gandambe in Ghana. The Homowo Festival, brothers and sisters, is the Passover / Unleavened Bread Festival, feast, right? Then you have another festival called Mayeli, right, which is Pentecost. This is legit amongst these people. Also, I want to add that the land, which specifically is Togo, Ghana, Nigeria, and Benin, or Dahomey, which they call Dahomey, was called Erverh or Ewe Nigba, which is Hebrew land. So you got the land is called Hebrew land. They got Hebrew customs. They got Hebrew names. They do all the signs and customs of the Hebrews, brothers and sisters. Who are they? There is no conversion of Judaism. So who are they? Where did these people even get this stuff from? Oh, guess what? We come from those people, right? They got the name of Yah in their name. I'm like, come on now. Like, come on now. Like, that does not make sense, right? And then we have the last festival amongst the Gandangbe, which is called the Motu, rather, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. Y'all can look this stuff up. Once again, that's the Homowo, the Homowo Festival, the Maeli Festival, and the Motu Festival, which is the Passover unleavened bread, Homowo, Pentecost is Maeli, and the Moto is the Tabernacles. We kept this in West Africa, brothers and sisters. Like, it's not hard to see that we are indeed those people. We are indeed those people, right? So, let us continue. Let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 2nd chapter. 2 Chronicles, the 2nd chapter. Second Chronicles, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 4. 2 Chronicles, the 2nd chapter. I'm sorry. And we're going to start at verse 4. 2 Chronicles 2 and verse 4. And verse 4 reads, Behold, I build an house to the name of the Lord my God, to dedicate it to him and to burn before him sweet incense, and for a continual showbread, and for the burnt offerings morning and evening, on the Sabbaths, on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts, the Lord our God. This is an ordinance forever to Israel. And of course, we were seeing them keep it even today. They still keep it, brothers and sisters. The Homowo Festival and all that, they still keeping that. Maeli, they still keeping that in Ghana, right? So they're still keeping these things, brothers and sisters. And this was an ordinance forever to Israel. So why else would you be keeping this unless, like I said, you're a convert, but you got to prove they are. And you're not going to be able to prove they converts, brothers and sisters. These are the Hebrew people. These are the Hebrew people, right? Let's go see something else. So now what y'all can do is y'all can match this stuff up with the scriptures. So guess what? We said that Maeli is Pentecost, right? Let's go to Acts, the 2nd chapter. Once again, Maeli amongst the Gandangbe in Ghana is Pentecost. It is Pentecost. Acts, the 2nd chapter. Acts, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Acts, the 2nd chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Acts 2 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. So the day of Pentecost, Maeli, brothers and sisters, it's the same festival. They doing the same thing, right? That's what it's called in Ghana. When we came over to Ghana, we named it Maeli, which was Pentecost, right? Let's skip down to verse 5. Let's see who was there, right? Verse 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under the sun. So the Jews are the ones that are keeping Pentecost, or the Hebrews, or the Ewe, right? Which it can be either one, brothers and sisters, right? It's called Pentecost. We see it called Pentecost here, but it's called Maeli in Ghana, right? That's what it's called, right? So that's us continue. Now we're going to Luke, the 2nd chapter. We're going back to Luke, the 2nd chapter. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and we got one more place after this. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 39. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 39. Luke, the 2nd chapter, and verse 39. Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom to you. Luke 2 and verse 39. And verse 39 reads, "And when they had performed all things according to the law of the Lord, they returned into Galilee in their own city, Nazareth. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover," right? Which would be the unleavened bread, right? So that's what they did every year, right? So guess what? If they were in Ghana, brothers and sisters, they would go to the Homowo festival. Just like those devout Jews in Acts 2, if they went into Ghana, they would go to the Maeli festival. You see how these things go? We've been keeping this stuff, brothers and sisters. It's just named. It's in different languages. Things get lost in translation, right? And that's mostly part of the fact that we have a crafty council amongst us, brothers and sisters, going on. They are doing a crafty counsel against us. So these things can be proven that we are the people of Israel, right? Because we kept this as our anthropology, brothers and sisters, right? This was our, these were our customs. This was our culture, brothers and sisters. We did not steer away from this when we were in West Africa completely, right? Of course, the paganism and the idolatry that was coming and merging with the Hebraic customs and the law, statutes, and commandments of the God of Israel, all of it was fused together. That's why we came over here. But you can still tell that these are those same people. The signs stayed with them. Specifically, the signs stayed with the people. The Sabbaths, right? All the Sabbaths, the circumcision, these things stayed with the people. The naming ceremony, their names, what they were called, it stayed with them. You just have to be, you just have to acknowledge and be aware of what this stuff means. That's the only thing. Let's go to the last place, which is Colossians, the 2nd chapter. Colossians, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 8. Colossians, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 8. Colossians 2 and verse 8. Colossians 2 and verse 8. And verse 8 reads, "Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily." Right? Let's skip down to verse 16. Verse 16. Verse 16 reads, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of a new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ." We want to understand that all of this stuff is being led back to Christ, brothers and sisters, right? All of it's being led back to Christ, showing that these customs are amongst these African tribes, not European tribes, but they were among these African tribes as traditions they passed down from ancient times, brothers and sisters. You don't have that with any European tribes where they have ancient practice of Hebraic customs all the way. We can trace, like the Yoruba, you could trace them all the way back to the Assyrians, right? All the way back to Sennacherib, you could trace them back. Where there was no conversion, where you have a conversion at that time. No, you don't have a conversion, brothers and sisters, until the Persian Empire. So before that, there was no they making you convert into something. That wasn't happening. It's either you went and you lived amongst the people or you didn't. Right? And if you didn't, you weren't doing it. So this was belonging to that specific people, period, brothers and sisters. And that specific people, they kept these customs all the way down in West Africa. This is where we come from, brothers and sisters, right? So I want to end it with this. It's crazy because I just found this today. And remember, I told y'all, brothers and sisters, that the main parts of what they called Hebrew land was Togo, Ghana, Benin, and Nigeria. Right? So I want to read this. This is from IsraelNews.com, actually. And this actually tripped me out, brothers and sisters. This is from IsraelNews.com. And so I'm going to get to the hold on. One moment. Dang, did I not print that out? Okay. So, within this article, brothers and sisters, and once again, I will put the article actually in the comment section afterwards. Within this article, this is the king, his name, the King Ayi of the West African nation. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. But he's of the West African nation of Togo. So let's see what he says. It says King Ayi of the West African nation of Togo arrived in Israel on Sunday with an unusual request. And this is an article from 2016, brothers and sisters, right? It says he wants the Jewish state to officially recognize his people as the lost tribes of Israel. Now, this is what the king of Togo said. He went to Israel and he wanted them to officially recognize his people as the lost tribes of Israel, brothers and sisters. Why is that? Because he said we've been keeping Jewish customs, circumcision, and the Sabbath day for thousands of years. Like I said, I'm going to put that article and y'all going to see. I done got the quote in here. Thought I put it in here. But I will put it in the comment section, brothers and sisters. We've been doing this for years, thousands of years. We cannot be converts. We had this in our oral tradition for thousands of years, brothers and sisters. And this just happened in 2016, where the king of Togo went to Israel for them to acknowledge him and his people as the Israelites, because they've been keeping Hebraic customs for thousands of years. The circumcision on the 8th day, and the Sabbath day, and the dietary laws. You see what I'm saying? So yes, we come from these people, and we are the Israelites, or the Ewe people, brothers and sisters, or the Bantu people, whatever you want to say. We them people. We God's chosen people, his chosen priests, genetically. I hope y'all got some understanding from that. Once again, brothers and sisters, we're gonna keep going, and we're gonna keep showing that this indeed is our people. There is no denying. The world knows who we are, brothers and sisters. You got to get to the point where you know who you are, And don't deny it. Don't let these naysayers or none of that. Don't let them say you're not these people, because we can prove through academia, brothers and sisters, not religion, but through the academic process, we can prove we are Israelites genetically. I hope you got some understanding. Once again, my name is Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Kazak Ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho Biblical and Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood media. It's always a pleasure for us to edify y'all, brothers and sisters. And as always, we thank you for your time, and shalom.